All right, so we are going to now compare fractions. So the way that we do this, there are actually a few different ways. You can draw models, which I'm going to demonstrate in just a minute. You can also do the cross multiplying or butterfly method. That's my favorite because it's the fastest, but it doesn't work for everybody, so I like to show both ways. So we have our two fractions here. We have 1/5 and 1/4, and we're going to compare these. The first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to draw the models. So something about when you're drawing models is you want to make sure that they are equal in size, because if the models themselves are not even, you can't properly compare them. So as you can see, they both go to right here, even though this one's a little wonky on the top. There, I'll fix it. And they go all the way over here as well. So I'm going to start by making this top one 1/5. So I'm going to label what it is. And I'm going to split my model here into 5 equal pieces. When you're doing an odd number, it makes it a little bit more difficult because you can't just split down the middle and then do the piece on each side. So I like to start by drawing the piece that would be in the middle. And now I have 2 equal pieces on the sides that I can draw. Just put a line down. And if you look at that, now I have 5 equal pieces here. Now I'm going to do my 1/4 on the bottom. So 1/4 means I need to have 4 equal pieces in here. Since it's fourths, I'm just going to split it in half. And then split it on half on both sides. Now, I need to shade in the parts of the model, or parts of the model that are represented by our fractions. So we have 1/5 up here. I'm just going to draw an X to show that I'm taking this piece. And down here we have 1/4, so I'm going to also draw an X in this one piece. Okay, now I can visually compare my two models. So looking at these, I can see that my 5th stops right here and my 4th stops right here. So I'm going to draw a line to extend where my 4th is. So I can see how it compares. Now, with where my line is, I can see that my 4th is greater than my 5th. Now, just to double check, I'm going to go ahead and cross multiply. So underneath where I have here, I'm going to rewrite my two fractions. So I have 1/5 and I have 1/4. When you cross multiply, you take the denominator of the first fraction and multiply it times the numerator of the opposite fraction. So I have 5 times 1, which gives me a 5. Now I have 4 times 1, which gives me a 4. And the fraction that has the larger number or the larger product on its side is the fraction that is greater. So I can see I have a 5 over here and a 4 over here. So that means that this number is greater, which means that my 1/4 is greater than my 1/5. All right, let's go ahead and try this on a different set of fractions. All right, so now we are comparing 7/8 and 3/4. I'm going to go ahead and draw the models. All right, so this top one is representing our 4ths. So here we have 3/4, and on the bottom we have our 8ths, which we have 7/8. Okay, so in our top model we need to shade in 3 out of the 4. So we have 1, 2, 3/4. On the bottom, we need to shade in 7 out of the 8. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7/8. Okay, now that we have our models here, we can visually see that our 7/8 is greater than our 3/4. But if we wanted to, we could also just extend our lines like we did before. So we know that 7/8 is greater, but we're going to check by cross multiplying like we did before. So we have 7/8 over here, and we have 3/4 on this side. We're going to multiply 8 times 3, which gives me 24. And we're also going to multiply 7 times 4, which gives me 28. The larger number is on this side, so that means that 7/8 is still greater. Now, in just a second, we're going to look at how we compare mixed numbers, as well as how we compare mixed numbers and improper fractions, because we do see those come up as well. All right, so we have two mixed numbers here. We have 2 3/4, and we have 2 6/7. So the thing to know about when you're comparing mixed numbers is that you always start by looking at the whole number. Because if the whole numbers are different, then you can just ignore the fraction altogether. Because obviously the one that has a greater whole number is the greater mixed number. And when the whole numbers are the same, you ignore the whole numbers and you just look at the fractions. So in this case, we have 2 whole numbers over here, and we have 2 whole numbers over here. So I can just ignore those whole numbers because they're not going to tell me anything different about the problem itself. So I'm going to look specifically at 3/4 and 6/7. So you can compare them normally. So either using models or by using the cross multiplication strategy. So I'm going to use cross multiplication because it's a little bit faster. So I have 3/4 and I have 6/7. I'm going to multiply 4 times 6, which gives me 24. And I'm also going to multiply 3 times 7, which gives me 21. Now looking at my two numbers that I have here, I have 21 and 24. 24 is greater than 21, so that tells me that 6/7 is greater. So going back to our two mixed numbers here, since 6/7 is greater than 3/4, that means that 2 6/7 is greater than 2 3/4. All right, now we have two new mixed numbers here. We have 3 8/10, and we have 2 7/10. So we're going to go ahead and compare these by starting to look at the whole numbers here. So on this side we have a 3, and on this side we have a 2. So since these two whole numbers are different, I can just ignore the fraction. I'm just going to look only at the whole numbers. And since we have a 3 over here, we know that 3 is greater than 2. So regardless of what the fraction is, I know that 3 8/10 is greater. I don't have to do anything else. I just looked at the whole numbers. That's it. So when the whole numbers are different, just completely ignore the fraction. Who cares that this one's 8/10 and that one's 7/10? Doesn't matter. You got 3 whole numbers here. It's greater than 2. All right. This is where it gets tricky. When you have a mixed number and you have an improper fraction, you gotta do some extra stuff. So let's say we have 7.5 over here and we have 15/2 here. The easiest way to compare them is to convert one of the fractions into either an improper fraction if you want to change this one, or a mixed number if you want to change that one. I'm going to show you both ways since we just talked about converting, or I talked about converting in my other video. So let's go ahead and start by converting our mixed number here into an improper fraction. So I'm going to take 7 and I'm going to multiply it by the 2 that's in the denominator. 7 times 2 gives me 14. And now I'm going to add my 1 here to find my new numerator, which is 15. My denominator is just going to slide on over. So I know that 7 1/2 is the same as 15 and a half. Now you're probably like, Miss Perry, that's the same thing as over there. Yeah, it is. So because I converted this this mixed number into an improper fraction, I can now see that 15 halves is the same thing as 15 halves. So since these are equal, that means that 7 and 1/2 is equal to 15 halves. Wow, we did it. All right, now we have 15 halves, and we're going to go the opposite way. We already know the answer, but it's always good to check. So we're going to take 15, and we're going to divide it by 2. We know that 2 goes not into 1 because 1's less, but 2 goes into 15 7 times. 2 times 7 gives me 14. 15 minus 14 gives me 1. Here's my whole number, big old 7. Here's my numerator. And my denominator's right there. Still equal. All right, let's go ahead and try it with some fractions that are not equal, just for funsies. All right, so we are going to compare our mixed number of 3 8/10 to our improper fraction of 16/10. I'm going to start by converting my mixed number here into an improper fraction to make it easier to compare. But then just for funsies, I'm also going to do 16/10 into a mixed number, just to see it both ways. So we're going to start with 3 8/10. We multiply 3 times 10, which will give us 30. And we're going to add our 8. So our new numerator is 38, and our denominator stays the same. So 3 8/10 is equal to 38/10. So looking at that, I can see that 38/10 is greater than 16/10 because 38 is greater than 16. So I know that 3 8/10 is greater than 16/10. But just to be sure, I'm also going to turn my 16/10 into a mixed number. So we have 16/10. So 16 divided by 10. We haven't talked about dividing by a 2-digit number in 4th grade, but we can see how many times 10 goes into 16, and that is a 1. So we have 16 minus 10, which leaves us with a 6. So here's our whole number, and here is our new numerator, and our denominator stays the same. So we can compare 3 8/10 to 1 6/10 and know that 3 8/10 is still greater than 16/10. And that has been Math Corner with Miss Perry. I hope that I have been of some assistance, and I hope that you reach out if you do need more help. See you later.